Back to Godhead greater than Prabhupada greater than Purushottam the Godhead, rational theism, the absolute truth in his supreme feature is Purushottam or the personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahma and localized Supersoul Paramatma features are his hazy and partial realization, although Brahma, Paramatma and Bhagwan are one and the same absolute truth. We have already discussed this subject matter in our article Sri Krishna the Supreme Vedantist. The absolute truth is realized as Sat Chit Ananda substance. Sat means eternal existence, Chit means full of knowledge and Ananda means full of joy. Therefore the supreme truth is Satchidananda Vigraya or the eternal form of personality and full of knowledge and joyful nature. He is therefore a Purusha or the enjoyer, but he is Akshara Purusha as distinguished from the Kshara Purusha. We can have the idea of the Akshara Purusha by studying the nature of Kshara Purusha because so far the Purusha quality is concerned, both the Kshara Purusha and Akshara Purusha are one and the same thing. The Kshara Purusha or the living entities want to live eternally, to know everything fully and to enjoy fully. Amongst all the different living entities the human form of living being is considered to be the highest because in that form only the living being can realize his own self as part and parcel of the absolute Satchidananda Vigraya. The Satchidananda Vigraya is just like the sun. When there is sun there is no darkness. This darkness of self-realization is resumed when the Kshara Purusha or the living being is face to face with the Satchidananda Vigraya. Therefore a human being in his attempt to know the absolute truth realizes either impersonal Brahman, or localized Paramatma or the Purushottam Bhagwan according to his inclination or capacity of realization. Brahma realization is compared with the realization of the sun rays, Paramatma realization is compared with the realization of sun disk and Bhagwan realization is compared with the realization of sun god living within the sun globe with all his paraphernalia. The sun globe is exactly a similar globe like the one in which we are living, but the atmosphere is different from the one that we are enjoying here. The living entities within the sun globe have different types of bodily structure just suitable for living there as much as the aquatic animals or the flying birds have suitable structure of material bodies for living in water or flying in the sky respectively. The animals of the land cannot live in water or fly in the sky, but that does not mean there is no living being neither in the sea or in the sky. Similarly, there is no truth in the assertion that there is no living being in other planets including the sun. Every planet is as much a living place as this earth is. So the absolute personality of Godhead or the Akshara Purusha being the supreme Satchidananda Vigraya, he is his own abode for enjoyment called by the name Goloka, although he in his impersonal Brahma feature is all-pervasive and in his localized Paramatma feature he is residing within every heart and everywhere including the atoms and electrons. Therefore Akshara Purusha or the living being realizes the same Satchidananda Vigraya in his Sat feature indicated by the transcendental sound Om Tat Sat and becomes an impersonal monist or Brahmavadi or Abraham the intelligent man. When he realizes the same Satchidananda Vigraya in his Satchid feature he realizes Paramatma as the localized aspect. As we have already explained, Paramatma realization is just like the realization of the sun disk. If there are crores and crores of men distributed in an area of thousands and thousands of miles, all of them will say at midday that the sun disk is hovering above his head. Although the sun is one, it can be realized as on the head of everyone all over the world. Similarly, the Satchidananda Vigraya in his Satchid Vigraya can be realized by one and all. But when a person is competent to enter into the abode of the Satchidananda Vigraya Sri Krishna the Purushottam, he can enjoy the company of him in person as we can enjoy the personal company of our master, our friends, our parents, and our lovers. There are 5 direct transcendental rases or mellows enjoyed by the Kshara Purusha in association with Akshara Purusha. They are called by the name, 1. Santarasa, 2. Dashyarasa, 3. Sakyarasa, 4. Vatsalya Rasa and 5. Madhurya Rasa. Santarasa is enjoyable by persons who have realized the Satchidananda Vigraya in his Brahman and Paramatma features. But the other rases, namely Dashya etc., are enjoyable by the devotees of Sri Krishna the Purushottam. Sri Krishna therefore informs directly in the Bhagavad Gita as follows, -BG 15.19, Ja, Mam, Eba, Asamyada, Janati Purushottam Amsa, Sarbabid, Bayati, Mam, Sarbabhabina, Burda. One who is not a Mudha or Naradhama but one who is a Samyada, i.e. transcendental to all varieties of ignorance, can realize Purushottam. There are different kinds of ignorant people. The fruitive workers are described as the Mudhas and Naradamas, and the empiric philosophical speculators are described as the class of Maya Aparita Janana. We have already discussed this subject matter in our article The Lowest of the Mankind. Besides these 2 classes of ignorant men, there are others who are described as the Duskritina. Ashuri Bhavamapana etc. So when one becomes a perfect Asamyadayi above all classes of foolish people, he gives up the false arguments of realizing the absolute truth and accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Purushottam. Sri Arjuna was made an Asamyada person by the mercy of his beloved friend Sri Krishna when he was given instruction on Bhagavad Gita. He actually understood Bhagavad Gita and therefore he became an Asamyada. And whoever will understand Bhagavad Gita in the Parampara or disciplic succession of Arjuna, he will also become an Asamyada after reading Bhagavad Gita. One cannot be called an Asamyada as long as one will continue to argue about the real nature of the Supreme Truth. In search of such Supreme Truth as we find in the process of inquiries by Arjuna and its suitable replies by the Lord. When Arjuna became perfectly Asamyada he said like this, BG 18.73, Nasta, Moha, Smriti, Labda, Tat, Prasadut, Maya, Akshuta. Sthitho, Asmi, Gata, Santa, Karishya, Vakanam, Tabas. My ignorance, Moha, is now dissipated, Nasta, and I have regained, Labda, my original consciousness, Smriti, by your grace. O Akshuta, the infallible, I am now settled up in my conviction because all my doubts, Sardiya, about my duty are now cleared off. I shall now carry out your order. This is the stage of being a Samyuddha, and in this stage only one can accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person Godhead. This is the highest stage of spiritual realization superior to the realization of Brahman Paramatma. In such realization only all arguments about the Supreme Truth stops and one begins to serve, Bhayoti, Sri Krishna, knowing him to be the Purushottam. Even those who are after Brahma realization or after Paramatma realization can worship Sri Krishna knowing him to be Purushottam, which term includes the other two features, namely Brahman and Paramatma. This conviction of Purushottam realization is so transcendently valuable that simply by this conviction, even by blind faith and without any knowledge of valuations, one can become vastly learned in the spiritual science. The reason is that Purushottam Godhead Sri Krishna is residing in the heart of every living being. And as soon as such living being turns his face towards Purushottam for his service, the devotee is instructed from within by the Supreme Vedantist in his Paramatma feature. When Paramatma becomes the instructor of Akshara Purusha, he is sure to be vastly learned in the transcendental science, for who can become greater instructor than the Supreme Lord? The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna takes special care for his devotee, otherwise he is always neutral to every living being. This is explicitly expressed in the Bhagavad Gita. And to show special favor to one who is constantly engaged in his service, the personality of Godhead Purushottam says like this, Sama, Aham, Sarva, Bhutchu, Na, Me, Disya, Asti, Na, Priya, J, Bayanti, Tu, Mam, Bhakta, Mei, Te, Tesu, Cha, API, Aham. BG 9.29, Ja, Mam, Ajam, Anadim, Cha, Betty, Loka, Maswaram, Asamyuddha, Sa, Marchu, Sarba, Papai, Pamuch 8. BG 18.3, Chan, Satata, Yuktanam, Bhajatam, Pritipurbhak, Dadami, Buddhi Yogam, Dam, Jana, Mam, Upayanti, Te. BG 10.10, Chan, Eba, Anukampartam, Aham, Irajam, Tama, Nashayami, Atmabhobastha, Janana, Dwipina, Vaswata. BG 10.11, one may argue as to how one can realize the Purushottam, the highest principle of spiritual realization, without undergoing the process of culturing spiritual knowledge. To them the direct reply is that one who is constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service or devotional activities under the direction of a self-realized spiritual master and in sincere mood, is awarded a special favor by the personality of Godhead. This special favor is not obtained by the other classes who are not within the range of devotional activities. One has simply to abide by the order of the Supreme Person, and thus his favors will follow automatically. One has not got to ask from him any special favor which the devotee deserves. The personality of Godhead being full of knowledge, he perfectly knows the needs of his devotees and he takes charge for all of them. The Jnana Dvipa or learning light supplied by the Supreme Lord is certainly transcendental and more powerful than the burning light manufactured by a scientist. No scientist can illuminate the whole world at night, even by the most powerful searchlight ever discovered by him. But the light of the Supreme Lord supplied through his agent the sun dissipates all the darkness of night even prior to his rising. And when the rising sun is on the zenith of the sky, there is no question of illumination even to the highest strength. Similarly, the personal light of the Supreme Lord is so powerful that even by his glowing effulgence the whole material conception of existence becomes cleared off. This light of the Supreme Lord is compared with the twilight before the sunrise. And when a man actually engages his energy in the service of the Lord, There is unlimited supply of spiritual light which one cannot expect to receive even by the studies of all the Vedas. The conclusion is therefore made by Srila Jiva Goswami, the highest scholarly acharya of the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya. He says the personality of Godhead Purushottam is the absolute truth on account of his becoming fully powerful with all potencies. In his impersonal feature the variegatedness of diverse potencies are conspicuous by their absence. It is for this reason the impersonal feature is known as Brahman the Unlimited. Impersonal Brahman is therefore partial manifestation of Purushottam. The word Bhagavana is analyzed in the following manner. Ba means the protector and maintainer, Ga means the leader, the mover and the creator, Ba indicates that all the living entities rest in the body of the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord as Paramatma resides in everyone's heart. The word Bhagavad indicates fully equipped with unlimited knowledge, energy, strength, opulence, influence, and activity. And all these qualities are transcendental without any tinge of material modes. Protector means one who sustains and settles. Leader means master of the devotees and enjoyer of devotional service. He moves his devotees into his transcendental abode just to favor them with special mercy. When we say creator, we do not mean that he is creator of this material world. This material world is created by one of his numberless agencies and the Prakriti or material nature is one of them. Personally he creates the transcendental qualities of his devotees. This is said in the Bhagavad Gita as follows: Maya, Adhyakshana, Prakriti, Suyat, Sakarakara, Hetmona, Anyana, Kuvantiya, Jagat, by Paribortate. Under my direction only the Prakriti creates all the movable and non-movable objects within the material nature, and for this reason only the movement of this progressive cosmos is going on. So the creation of the material world with all paraphernalias are the result of his direction through his agent Prakriti. But so far the transcendental qualities of his devotees are concerned, he is personally interested to create the favorable circumstances for leading the devotee. Chan, Eva, Anukampartam, Aham, Inajam, Tama, Nashayami, Atmabhavastha, Janana, Dwepina, Vaswata. We have already explained this sloka previously in this. So far the material world is concerned, he is in one way indifferent in it because he is always joyful by his internal potency. The material world is the product of this external potency and the living entities are his marginal potency. But although he is personally indifferent like in the affairs of the material world, just to maintain the coordinated relation of him with the material nature, he maintains the creation, sustenance and destruction of the same by expanding himself in his plenary parts. Such plenary parts and parts of the plenary parts are known as Rama, Narishna, Bharat, Narayana, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheswara and many others also, who are all to be understood as the personality of Godhead himself. Because there is no difference in potency between him and these plenary parts. The difference is in the matter of manifestation of the potencies. The cause of all causes or the primeval Lord Supreme Personality of Godhead Purushottam Sri Krishna enlivens this material world by impregnating his potential parts, called the jivas or living entities. These living entities, who wanted to enjoy this material world, are given all the facilities of enjoyment in its instrument, namely the senses, body and mind. And the plenary portion who controls the management of these material affairs is known as Paramatma. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita as follows: BG 10.40, Athaba, Bahuna, Etana, Kim, Jnatana, Taba, Arjuna, Vistavya, Aham, Idam, Kritsnam, Eka, Amsina, Stitha, Jagat. This material world is maintained by one of my plenary portions and you need not know more than this. This Eka Amsa or one plenary portion is called Paramatma, and we discussed this point on our last article, Sri Krishna the Supreme Vedantist. The ordinary living entities, although part and parcels of the Supreme Lord Purushottam, they are known as Atma or the individual spirit soul. But Paramatma is different from this Atma because there are specific potentialities far superior than the potencies of the Jivatma. Paramatma is cooperator with the Jivatma. We can understand this by the following example. Whenever there is a congregation of the mass of people for some religious fair or political conference like the annual session of All India Congress etc. in a particular locality or place, the government deputes some officer like the magistrate or so, for arranging the necessary public works like sanitation, law order, post office, hospital, water supply, etc. Now this deputed officer may be compared with Paramatma. The mass of people who congregate in that mela or conference are as much parts of the government as the deputed magistrate. But the magistrate is fully equipped with all the potencies of the highest executive head while the mass of people have no such power. The magistrate is situated there to observe the activities of the people and give them necessary facilities for executing their will, but the magistrate cannot be called an ordinary man as one of the conference or mela people. So the Paramatma is situated at everyone's heart as cooperator of the individual soul, but he is not equal with the living being. He is Parama, or the Supreme. And the truth which exists eternally either in phenomenon or noumenon, or in other words either in manifestation or oblivion, is called the impersonal Brahman. Srimad Bhagavad concludes like this: SB January 2, 2011, Vedanti, Tatvavada, Tatvam, Jat, Jnanam, Advayam, Braham, ITI, Paramatma, ITI, Bhagwan, ITI, Sabdate. The Transcendentalists who are expert in spiritual science calls the Supreme Truth as Absolute. That Absolute Truth is realized either as 1. Impersonal Brahman, or as 2. Paramatma, or as 3. Bhagwan, according to the realizing capacity of the performer. Bhagwan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word in spiritual sense.